Hi, welcome to Bonano TV's one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso. My name is Jones Kasonso. This weekend, it's the How to Fix the Zambian Economy Part 4, and we discussed the 18 officials arrested in the Ministry of Finance saga yesterday. We assess the fight against corruption under the new Dawn administration, and then we evaluate the perils of corruption, amongst other topics, and conclude with public policy recommendations. Like, subscribe, and follow Bonano TV on Facebook and YouTube. Before we get started tonight, I will give you a few minutes to share this important discussion with your family and friends on Facebook and YouTube. And whilst you're doing that, I will let the legendary Selenje Kalindula Band entertain us with a classic piece of Kalindula called Mkafwila Mkwenda. Hi, I'm still waiting for Robbie to connect. And today, in today's show, we are going to continue with how to fix the Zambian economy, part 4. And here we're going to discuss the 18 officials arrested in the Ministry of Finance saga yesterday. And we're going to assess the fight against corruption under the new Dawn government. We're going to also evaluate the perils of corruption, among other topics. And we conclude with some public policy recommendations. And whilst I'm waiting for my partner, Robbie, to connect, sometimes the connection between the United States and Zambia can be a little bit of a hassle. So yes, Robbie is about to connect, and he is here. So let's find Robbie, and he can take his place. Robbie is here tonight. Hey, Robbie. Hello, Robbie. Okay, I've been able to connect Robbie. And yes, let's get him settled down. And we will, in the meantime, let's have the Mulemena Boys with Vanamayo Vambilelo. It's a very old piece of Kalindula. So let me connect with Robbie, and we'll be back shortly.
Vanamayo Vambilelo, Vanamayo Vambilelo, Vanamayo Vambilelo, Vanamayo Vambilelo, Batemwa kuya mufata, batemwa kuya mukipatala ati kuya bakaya bafile ati kuya bakaya bafile kachivena bali pamano kachivena bali pamano baya mukumona malukula baya mukumona malukula abasitise kwa menshi abasitise kwa menshi yamuri abasamba bafwa yamuri abasamba bafwa abotolo nisante kwa chama yolete abotolo nisante kwa chama abotolo nisante kwa chama yolete abotolo nisante kwa chama yakubika mu munani w'abantu amezi wo yakubika mu munani w'abantu ekuti nomba bante mwesana balume wo ekuti nomba bante mwesana bana mayo bambirelo bana mayo bambirelo batemwa kuya mu kipatala batemwa kuya mu kipatala ati kuya bakaya bafile ati kuya bakaya bafile kachivena bali pamano kachivena bali pamano baya mukumona malukula baya mukumona malukula abasitise kwa menshi abasitise kwa menshi yamuri abasamba bafwa yamuri abasamba bafwa kabotolo nisante kwa chama tete kabotolo nisante kwa chama yakubika mu munani w'abantu amenshi wo yakubika mu munani w'abantu ekuti nomba bante mwesana balume wo ekuti nomba bante mwesana ekuti nomba bante mwesana balume wo ekuti nomba bante mwesana namayo umo ari titirenge vyofine abikira abalume abenshi abalume bari tambiro kulowana bari rilengati barira ko mumara barira ko mutwe barira ko embafu Wanjipaya mayo, 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 wanjipaya mayo.
So, Dr. Kasonso, Dr.
Hey,
Kasonso,
Robbie. Hey.
how are
Yeah,
you, Dr. Kasonso?
I am fine, Robbie. How are you?
We are all right, and Zambia is okay, except we are joining our colleagues in Malawi, who are having a devastation, They have cholera. They're also having a tropical cyclone, Freddy, which is hitting so hard. Al Jazeera, ZNBC, CNN, and so many great media, companies have really showed that it's been a challenge. But
I know. But Malawi nabo, but they should just stop being a country and join Zambia. We are already one. Why are we going to have a little province like Luapula province on the eastern part of Zambia and quite a country? Let them just join Zambia. But population-wise, you know that they can swallow us, right?
Oh yes, for sure.
Balafiala sana vena Malawi. So we should emulate them. How can that strip of land have more children and more people than this entire Zambia? But that's my country. Malawi is our country. We should always be there in our prayers. So let's continue with the show, Robbie.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kasonso. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kasonso. We want to welcome every one of you that are viewing us here on Bonano TV. Of course, I'm your one-time host, Robbie Chivololo, broadcasting from Dola, Zambia. This Saturday night segment, on Bonano TV, we present the one-on-one, your favorite one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso. We talk about current issues in business with a focus, on Zambia. Today, it is the how to fix the Zambian economy part 4. We are going to run this thing, for the next 10 weeks. So far, we've done 2 weeks. So make a date with us every Saturday night. We have conveniently moved to 22 hours so that in your comfort zone, you should be able to understand and then participate in our discussion, where business is concerned, one-on-one. So please share this discussion with your friends on Facebook and subscribe to Bonano TV. If you haven't done that, please like our program. We are live also on YouTube as well. So before I bring in Dr. Kasonso, let us give ourselves some business status on the and thank you, viewers, for watching us here on Bonano TV. We monitored our performance of the Kwacha at the close of business week. Last week, the US dollar to the Kwacha was buying at 20.55 Kwacha and selling at 20.60 Kwacha. The British pound was buying at 24.95 Kwacha and selling at 25.02 Kwacha. The euro was buying at 21.85 Kwacha and selling at 21.90 Kwacha. The South African rand was buying at 1.11 Kwacha and selling at 1.12 Kwacha. Clearly, the current exchange rates of all major convertible currencies continue to depreciate and hold due to the low aggregate output of our economy to the global economy. This is, of course, being compounded by the stand of with China, dragging their feet to restructure the PF contracted debt, of course. Yeah. So tonight, it is the how to fix the Zambian economy part 4, sorry. In this broadcast, we discuss the 18 official arrested, in the Ministry of Finance saga. We assess the fight against corruption under the new Dawn government, evaluate the perils of corruption, among other topics, and conclude with some public policy recommendations. Please share the discussion with your friends on Facebook and subscribe to TV Bonano if you have not. We are live on YouTube as well. Another reminder. Yeah. So we are live on. So to help us address the salient points, I will be bringing Dr. Kasonso from the state of Iowa in the US. Thank you, Iowa. Dr. Jones Kayamba Kasonso. Welcome.
Robbie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. It's good to have you. At least we know that at this point, the technical difficulties have been overcome. Yeah, so we're a global TV channel. I am being hosted by a gentleman in the heart of the city where I was born, where I went to college, where I had my first job, my second job after college. Yes, Ndola is a priceless city, Robbie. Thank you for having me.
It's beautiful, beautiful, Dr. Kasonso. We thank you so much. 18 officials arrested in the Ministry of Finance saga. Yesterday, the SEC made arrests. I'll be able to read the the letter straight from the ACC, which Bonano TV was able to capture. Okay, the letter was dated on the 17th of March 2023, and the number of pages, of course, is just about one. And the press release from the Anti-Corruption Commission is saying 18 officials arrested in the Ministry of Finance saga. The Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested 18 individuals in a financial scandal at the Ministry of Finance, in which investigations are currently underway. The investigations border on payments made for fictitious activities and the theft of public funds. Among those arrested include the AG, Auditor General, Dr. Chembe, former Secretary to the Treasury, Fredson Yamba, Accountant General Kennedy Msonda, two Deputy Auditor General, namely Clara Francis Hill. Others arrested are Director of Budget, Director for Police and Research, Paides Mulenga, Principal Accountant, and Elijah Manunga, Director for Internal Audit, Nora Mwila Sichilongo, Director for Local Government and Projects, Mumba Walia, Senior Accountant, Edward Zimbizi, Principal for Budget Analysis, Medson Moyo, Accountant, Angela Bwalia, Controller of Internal Audit, Chiwe Norbert Mulonda, and Chief Accountant for Policy, Research and Standards, Barabina Mumba. The Commission wishes to state that it is not targeting any person at the Ministry of Finance. The investigations are purely professional and based on information of alleged abuse of office and theft of public funds perpetrated by named individuals. The Commission further wishes to clarify that some individuals have voluntarily offered to pay back the funds they legally received. This is provided for in the Section 80 of the Anti-Corruption Act number 3 of 2012. The Commission has subsequently restricted several bank accounts and held by individuals suspected to be involved in the saga as part of ongoing investigations. Timothy Mono, signed, Head of Corporate Communications, read the letter from the ACC, Dr. Kasonso. What are your thoughts on this situation, Dr. Kasonso?
Well, Robbie, thank you so much for that readout of the correspondence from the Anti-Corruption Commission. My heart, I would say to you, that is very heartbroken because the majority of the people on that list are from my profession, the accountants of Zambia. Yeah, I'm very sad to have indictments of eminent finance professionals and what we call here in the United States indicted regarding what goes on what went on in their profession whilst they're working for the patriotic government. It also shows us, Robbie, that the Patriotic Front problems straddled around many people's lives and went into the professions and also corrupted them. Of course, they haven't said they are guilty, but the SEC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has clearly said that many of those people, some of those people, have accepted that they received payments that they shouldn't have received. And they are prepared under the Constitution of Zambia to pay that money back. That is very helpful and very good for their profession. Because in my profession, We are the most regulated profession in the world, including here in the United States. The accountant cannot go around collecting money that they didn't work for. That is both unprofessional and not necessary. You are trying to end your career. So the moment you bump into very corrupt people who are trying to veer you away from the tenets of the profession, that is the day you leave that job. Even if it's a government job, even if it's anything to do like that. I looked through all that list, and majority of the people on that list are from my profession. So when I say to you that I'm heartbroken, it's really real, because the Zambian accountant is my foundation. Before I'm a global accountant, before I'm a USA public accountant, before I'm a professor of accounting, before I'm a professor, what I am ultimately, first of all, what I am is just a simple Zambian accountant. And now we have the most eminent professionals in their time indicted. I am looking forward to see how the SCC will resolve this case. But I must mention to you that this is a very sad day for the accounting profession in Zambia. And the Zika must get involved. The Zika must get involved, and the Zika must become interested in this case. We cannot have a situation where the gatekeepers of financial issues are indicted in a case related to their work. We are making people lose confidence in everything. We, the accountant, are the gatekeepers. I am looking forward to read the cases against each one of these individuals, and let me not jump to conclusions to judge any one of them. Everybody is innocent before the law, and they have to go through the due process. But the fact that eminent accountants of our country have been mentioned in such a scandal is a heartbreaking situation for Zambia. The accountant cannot be corrupt. Then we don't even have a country. You put the accountant in public service and the accountant is going to be corrupt. Then what do we have in Zambia? I'm challenging the Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants to get interested in this and restore credibility, and also follow this case keenly, because the accountant cannot be the figurehead of corruption in a country struggling with corruption. The accountant is the gatekeeper. The accountant is the person who is supposed to be in the forefront to disclose acts of corruption. Then what type of accountant did we have in the past regime? It's an accountant without a backbone. If all of them could just be bribed by silly drunk people, it's not constructive. And it's very upsetting, Mr. Robbie. I'm sorry if I lost your train of thought, but that's what I think about that situation. The accountants cannot be indicted. They are not practicing the tenets of our profession. We had those problems here in the United States between the year 2000 and the year 2002. And the accountant is the most regulated profession in the greatest economy in the world. We are going to make sure that is the same even in the Republic of Zambia. Kwaliba accountant who are corrupt. Barobi. Nibu accountant washani. Bunibu accountant washani uwo.
Chabulanda mkwai.
That's what I think.
Thank you, Dr. Kasonso. Wow, viewers, that's Dr. Kasonso's thoughts on the current press release from the SEC that we just read for you, our viewers. Well, Dr. Kasonso, thank you so much for your thoughts. We much appreciate. Dr. Kasonso, How would you assess the fight against corruption under the new Dawn administration?
In my view here, in my little bungalow here in Iowa, I think that the intentions of the new Dawn government to fight corruption are good. But the
Wow.
strategies need to be a little bit more oiled. Our government has been in power for now close to 2 years. Their fight against corruption, we have not seen any major convictions of the people we thought they were very, in the words of Bauman Lusambo, very corrupt. Yeah. So the overall assessment is that yes, they probably are taking a professional deep breath, making sure that they don't bring to court people who shouldn't be brought there. Yeah. So my thinking is that there's a lot of work to be done. But I also must mention that in close to 2 years, we haven't seen anything substantive in the fight against corruption. Yesterday's arrest is probably the big gun because they are indicting accountants, and that breaks my heart. So if we go through these accountant indictments and nothing is over there, then we're going to be developing a problem with this fight against corruption. The fight against corruption in the Republic of Zambia should be deeper and more powerful under this president who is an accounting entrepreneur by background. It should be even more robust than that. But the way I see it, I can only say that the intention is noble. But so far, results na chenga. Ine professor wa bantu. Results na chenga chua. Ine professor wa bantu na chenga. Uteko bwandi ubu. I support this administration, but results ya pali corruption na chenga barobi na chenga. And if this one, the one they did yesterday, leads to something constructive, we will be back here to give credit. We know that one of the things that the previous government did was to hide a lot of corruption in the legalities where the government officials around the project authorize something. You cannot prosecute them. So there was a bit of thinking from the Zambia lawyer who was creating corruption cartels in Zambia. And that is probably what the new Dawn fight against corruption is going to struggle with. So what I can say is, one, I give them an A on intention. I give them an F on the results so far. And this is a government I support, but I'm an honest man. I don't lie to people. I'm a pastor. I'm a former pastor. So thank you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Kasonso. Well, that is how you have assessed the fight against corruption under the new Dawn administration currently, under our able leader, our president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. Wow. The government must enact and implement public policies to improve the welfare of all citizens in Zambia, Dr. Kasonso. Dr. Kasonso, why is the fight against corruption so important in our country, Zambia?
Why is the fight against corruption so important in Zambia? Okay. This is, Robbie, that question is very broad. And I should mention here that because of the broadness of the question, I have at least to, for the purposes of this hour show, I have to restrict myself to certain concepts. The fight against corruption is very important because without us sticking it to corrupt elements in government, public policy will not succeed. Whatever government says they want to do is going to be hindered. Corruption by Robbie is like wapose mbalala mukano 5 elo lumuna lubola. So whatever government will be doing, you will have to spit everything, because if it's marred with corruption, then the intended results cannot be there. So I'll give you 7 reasons why the fight against corruption is very important. Number 1, corruption undermines sustainable development goals. Number 2, corruption brings about economic loss and inefficiency. Corruption extends poverty and inequality. Number 4, corruption brings about personal loss to people and exacerbates intimidation and incompetence. Number 5, corruption, public and private, the public and private sector in a country becomes dysfunctional. 6, and there is a failure in infrastructure. And 7, there is a rigged economic and political system. So whatever we profess to do as honest people, it just never works out. If I may comment a little bit on those 7 points that I've given you, Robbie. Corruption hampers the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs of the United Nations are comprehensive, and their susceptibility to be undermined by corruption is unsurprising. You know, it is entirely conceivable that a better and more sustainable future for all often runs counter to the interests of a few and can be derailed through many forms of corruption. Under conditions of diminished state capacity, nations fail to eradicate poverty, address hunger, secure good healthcare, and high quality education for their citizens. Also guarantee gender equality and other human rights, reduced inequalities, and so on. So of particular interest is peace and justice and strong institutions. In the United Nations research, there are certain goals that an economy must achieve for that economy to be sustainable. Corruption runs counter to that. So a country cannot achieve any one of those objectives because of that. And when we talk about economic inefficiency, economic loss and inefficiency, Robbie, you know, we know that it's very difficult for us to calculate the economic costs of corruption. But there are estimates that we can use to ascribe the costs to bribery. According to the United Nations, the cost of bribery worldwide is between $1.5 to $2 trillion per year. This represents a total economic loss of approximately 2% of the global GDP. And yet it does not take into account the economic loss of all other forms of corruption. Regarding fraud, laundering, tax evasion, for example, the thousands of leaked documents known as the Panama Papers also expose the vast economic implications of offshore accounts for many people and economic inequalities in general. And finally, beyond the dead weight economic loss, there is economic I apologize for that, Robbie. It's an alarm on one of my phones. So what I'm trying to say is that the economic loss and deficiency is colossal. And then there is the element where poverty and inequality continues. Corruption is generally not the weapon of the weak. Let me give you an example in Nigeria, and then I'll bring it to Zambia. In Nigeria, a famous bribery case involved an international oil company called Shell. It deprived Nigerian people of over $1.1 billion in dollars as money that went to corrupt officials instead of the national budget. So in that example, where corruption exists is the officials in government sell out to an international company. They collect the bribes and become so rich, and they don't implement any changes that will benefit their people in the economy. If that money goes to the budget, it reaches the poor, but that money ends up in the pockets of the people in power. And therefore, that money doesn't reach the poor, and it exacerbates inequality. So, Robbie, corruption increases poverty and makes just a few people rich, and the money, they can't use it on anything progressive. Let's revisit the issue of personal loss and intimidation and inconvenience. When people experience corruption, it is rarely a positive experience. A bribe must be paid to receive medical attention, obtain a building permit, pick up a package, enjoy a phone service. Can you imagine where you are paying a bribe for anything? A bribe must be paid to get a job. If we go in the Republic, in the past regime, young people who are trying to get a job in the teaching service, we used to pay hefty bribes just to get a job. So there is tremendous personal loss, intimidation, and inconvenience. Let's talk about a little bit about the public and private sector dysfunction. The cumulative effect of individual corruption acts is dysfunctionality. You know, whether offered by the public or private sector, the quality of goods and services decrease, and the process of obtaining them becomes more expensive, time-consuming, and unfair. If bribes can successfully be offered to police, doctors, and civil servants, then those who are most successful are extracting those funds and get ahead to the detriment of the more honest colleagues and competitors who perform better on merit. So a corrupt society loses access to meritocracy. The president said these past words. Which words is he used to describe people thinking that he could cede power and bring people in to jail him? What words that? What that word he used in Kitwe?
Kutumpa.
Kutumpa. Corruption, kutumpa. Corruption, kutumpa. And then, Robbie, you have to think about the failures in infrastructure. If we are awarding contracts corruptly, that's why we have potholes in places we shouldn't have potholes, because we hired people who carved a shortcut. That is another problem. And in the words of the president, kutumpa. You know,
Kutumpo.
yes. So in the final analysis, my friend, we get a rigged economic and political system. What is described as dysfunction is actually functional and profitable for corrupt actors.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dr. Kasonso, you are really, extrapolating so well. And you know, kuno Zambia, we have Kateka Wabonze. Then we also have Bosu Wabonze, Kopara Richman. And then Nat Kwatana last born, Super Abataradi. Badi Mulela Kukitwe, Bakateka. And then here on TV Bonano, we have Professor Wabantu Bonze, Wabonze,
Yes.
Dr. Kasonso. I like that.
Oh God, that's so silly. Professor Wabantu. Yes, I think I take the title. I will come and pay the
Yes.
offering if that title becomes permanent, because I'm just publicly here trying to dish out information.
Professor Wabantu Bonze, but Bonano TV, Ale Filondorola, making people understand in simplicity everything that seems to be very difficult, technical. Professor Wabantu Bonze is here to make everyone understand, and make sure that people conceptualize and also, appreciate what efforts that government is doing, wherever it's difficult to be understood. Professor Wabonse, Professor Dr. Kasonso, Epwadiapa is here to make sure that we are able to understand every little point that we are missing on government's journey to economic emancipation. Generally speaking, the new Dawn government was elected to fix the economy in Zambia. Here at Bonano TV, we are also a public diary of how they are going about it. As we publicly discuss current issues in business. On Robbie's show, one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso. Now, Professor Wabantu won't say, Professor Wabantu, Dr. Kasonso, what are the perils of corruption in Zambia?
Oh, thank you so much for that brilliant question, Robbie. The perils of corruption in Zambia can be seen that when we pay bribes and we corrupt the elements of people, we undermine sustainable development goals. We experience economic loss and inefficiency. And then we increase poverty and inequality. And we have personal losses. People live under intimidation and serious inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
Public and private sectors are dysfunctional. You cannot go and experience what you should experience. You cannot experience what you should experience when you do a trade or a business. There's failure of infrastructure. You get substandard work because people corruptly got contracts. And then we have a rigged economic and political system that favors populism that is not based on facts or substantively useful to the greater good of all our peoples. Then we have a rigged economic and political system that puts people on top without merit. Those are the real dangers of corruption in the Republic of Zambia, Robbie.
Really, I
And
understand.
And if you think about what we were living under the previous administration, corruption infested every fabric of our society. Where nentungulushi na denta formula ya lubana ya imina paba chintu wingi nokulanda tulya mwibala lya mubomba mwibala lya mwibala. And what that means is a dog whistle to corrupt elements to try and perceive government as an institution where they fork out the money just for themselves. Refer to what is going on right now in that Ministry of Finance saga. Those are honorable people professionally. But once they were in the hands of a corrupt administration, what became to those accountants? We must prosecute those accountants, and the accountants will give us the details of the corruption, particularly in their defense, and they will tell us who made them do such things. So those are the perils of some of the perils of the corruption in our country. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Kasonso, thank you so much. A quick one. I remember, when you say corruption, would, have, inefficiency, would deliver inefficiencies, in an economy, and also, bring in, human resource that is really, inefficient in service delivery as well. I agree with you, because I think there's a script that used to run, I think some years back, where it should be some notably, appointed person is given to, deliver a speech, to deliver a speech. And unfortunately, he doesn't know how to read English, but given a very good position, big position, professor, very, very good position, but he doesn't know how to read English. And he keeps on, wondering what is written on the paper. That was very sad anyway. Dr. Kasonso, how would you relate the danger of corruption to vices? How would you relate the danger of corruption to vices such as impunity, and partial justice, rising liberal populism, organized crime, and terrorism? Dr. Kasonso.
Robbie, that's a brilliant question. The reason why I see brilliance in your question is because because when you look at impunity and partial justice, when corruption pervades the justice system, people can no longer count on the prosecutors and the judges to do their jobs. You remember the dribblings that went on in the so-called Constitutional Court. That is what partial justice is, where the entire court has to rely on a trick not to hear a case. That's the perils of partial justice. The powerful may escape justice, and citizens, especially those with resources or few powerful allies, may be unfairly accused of crimes and deprived of the due process and wrongly imprisoned. You remember a candidate for president is arrested for a traffic offense, and the government books it as treason, and the entire justice system is silent. That is impunity and partial justice. And wrongly imprisoned, yeah. So resources on preventing corruption and strengthening integrity in the judicial system are available on the United Nations website for such things. What we have in that situation, Robbie, is that impunity and impartial justice goes to the party to celebrate. And there is no fairness in a country. Now, when we talk about the rise of illiberal populism, in the year 2017, the TI report and several scholarly publications make the point that increasing authoritarianism is partly fueled by corruption. It's partly fueled by corruption. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, corruption increases inequality, decreases population accountability and political responsiveness, and thus produces rising frustrations and hardships among citizens, who are then more likely to accept or even demand hard-handed and liberal tactics. Those tactics shift the blame for economic insecurity and political decline into people like migrants or other minority groups, and onto economic and political elites, who must, the theory goes, be dealt with swiftly and decisively. The rule of law and liberal values of tolerance and human dignity then become obstacles to needed change. for a more general discussion, we can actually broaden this up. But let's try and bring it down to umuntu and Chiwemba, or to understand what we are saying here. What we are saying here is that corruption gives rise to cheap populism. Umuntu kutaisa abula fiati uyu muntu ala ndiye takabweshe fertilizer pale 250. Bushe fertilizer lelo ili pale 250 kwacha. You understand that thinking, Robbie?
Sana.
Umuntu ala ndiye pale 250 mu 2017 bushe 250 mu 2017. Ichilimo in 250 this year.
You
tell me more about net present value and how the value of money changes over time.
Fantu, but tutiro kwevati, muli value for money, and tutiro kwevati one kwacha lero, ke one kwacha maidoyo. Chester, kwevena Zambia, tuwalikwata msamba shu imbenye mbwa Chester. Chester, adi mba poli mbolu mwachi degree wucho shinapitiremo. Muli dolu mbolu wakumu, adi tiramo kwevati, one kwacha, mailo, te akabeni one kwacha. That guy must be an accountant. He must have done something with accounting. So, muni data. Yoruba tiro kum 2017 kwachi 250 fertilizer lishabwe. Lero tulikuwa hivi iwele lina pale 250 iwele na kumshu kwa chilishani. Awe. Apa peni kwa Bonano TV. Tepo kwa kumbolanda indalangu wa Kasonso. Kufuebo kwati $1 against the watch, it is 20 watch. No, but so now because I'm not going to go back and
yeah. So corruption, Maya Vepa and to know what's a corrupt. Figure and that populism destroyed. The other one that you asked about had to do with organized crime and terrorism. Nefarious elements in society thrive as the profits can be laundered, funding disguised, and the judicial officials and politicians corrupted through bribes. So what we are saying is that, for example, if you look at the past administration, Ichalo Chari Jomba Warobi, Ichalo Chari Jomba
Empire.
Americans proceedings balaba ko bati ba nensu ni baka pepera to church nabo but ni ba pwaka pama issues ya charota pa befo ba ishiba eba le control mukaya kuisa
wakweteka mapanga.
Yeah, I was listening to a chat by the one Bauman Lusambo the other day, and he was speaking in good Bemba. I wonder why he doesn't speak in Lamba, because Lamba is very close to Bemba, and it's a very good language, and it's his language. He has no connection to Bemba language. So we have these people who come and speak the Bemba language, and they pollute my mother's heritage with that language because they use crookedness using my mother's language. And I'm not very excited about that. Ena, kwambo kutasha va China, kwambo kutasha na va Russia, kwambo kutasha na va India. And and the things you can point to, nichi bridge, chi flyover bridge, va Kongwe ku India. Without telling the people that is the reason why the currency is actually tanking. So what we are trying to say is that in an environment of corruption, such elements thrive.
Yes.
We have to fight corruption because the people, pakuti wiso kwa tefia kulanda. First ufiri wa ya verenga. Ufiri wa kuskulu. Nga tawile kuskulu, tawile ngeno kuverenga. Tawile tefia kulanda pupamashi wia chalo.
Ikalatie, udingira wa ikalatie.
Tuwale funde. Ero keka kwa tefia kulanda. Number,
yes.
Mulandu, the corruption gives people abafiri okwikala fie. Issue with yapati vale landa ni mu democracy. Some guy says, you are president wakampere ko 2 months here take a chalo. Only in history and in any country, kwisoko babule chipo pa musebo ukwe cheve chiteke ko chalo 7 months. or 3 months. You know,
Not different
they have these concepts and theories wrapped in illiteracy, and they want to bring them as a conversation for our country. We cannot do that. Barob.
We are taken for granted as a country. HO, you know, in the last session, you know, Dr. Kasonso, you know, ekyalo kyeso natutemuka okuberenga tutemuka ku school tuleberengako, because if we will not, even if jobs, you know, are becoming a scarce thing, but I think tuposa kwama nokuberenga tuleishiwa beratu bepafi. We need to inculcate a culture where somebody says something, then we go into, you know, into the theories and read. You know, we want to read and affirm to say what he's saying. It's a tested statement which will yield good and positive results. That which should be, you know, appreciated in our country. For example, Kateka Naland Authority, when Kalacharo, I will not hand out money, can tell me if they want to watch. We will create opportunities for you, so that whenever you have businesses in form of cooperatives, you know, even registered companies that are coming on board, and you apply for your, you know, for that chance to be, you know, given a business, you will not be denied, and money will be given to you in form of, you know, a business, so that you offer a qualitable service. You know, already, Dr. Kasonso, we have this road which has been proposed. Of course, I liked when the president says we don't need to debate about the PPP project, that is, you know, the dual carriage from Lusaka to Dola. He said there is nothing that needs to be discussed on that, but it should be a go-ahead project. You know, I agreed with him, because the opportunities attached to that is what Bonano TV is always preaching about. You know, now people are busy registering their companies and seeing an opportunity in that. And that's what the president is looking at. He should be excited, you know, to see that a lot of people have written, you know, have applied to be attached to such projects. Nedo tulebomba, nedo abantu balebomba, but wakwata idea kwachi, I will not expect my salary at a month end, you know, and make pressure that government should increase the salary. You know, they should as well get into business, so that they should increase their salaries by, you know, getting, you know, being awarded with, you know, opportunities with what the government is trying to do with so many projects that it, you know, is doing. Kateka has gone out of the country several times. You know, Nangbala Mpendela Kateka. Nah, yeah, yes, but he is creating an enabling environment for us to do business. You know, so Edo Abanta Wasambidi will be cheated by masses. The masses will be cheated by the minority, who should be able to say, okay, what for a child 2 months, take a child. Are you sure only 2 months? You know, a child who to achipa, few 80 achipa. You know, to operation government workers, I'm busy, I'm not going to do only 2 months. Can they collect money that would really, you know, mitigate the suffering and the need of everyone in this country? It's not possible, Professor Kasonso. Bonano TV, we are here for this. We discuss business for you people to really reassure you, and also make you understand the enabling environment that you need to get. Professor Kasonso, a quick one. Instead to Pila Sana, things are getting better. You know, let's look at the impact, Professor Kasonso. You know, what's the impact of corruption on state capacity, polarization, and unrest, and the damage of biodiversity, you know, in our country, Zambia? Professor Avan, once.
Robbie, lanatampira point yalas. Wajirana chani biodiversity.
Biodiversity, mchalo cha Zambia.
Oh my God, wherever you get this question. You know, when I saw that, the first thing I thought about in Forest 27.
Yes.
Forest 27, yai kalapa geological knot. I kata the floor of underwater. Kulusaka. But then I say money was power of PF. But in Pangailo for a cent to call for my end, it was non calendar machine for my Chinese. So that issue, Robbie, corruption derails anti-climate change funding and initiatives and defeats forest conservation and sustained forest management programs and fuels wildlife fishery crimes. Now, what I'm trying to say is that corruption does not pay attention to other technical and professionally evaluated concepts in the field of how we handle the environment. Vesa munafe mpanga yalikala muli kaunda, basa munafe mpanga yalikala muli chiluba, basa munafe mpanga yalikala muli mwanawasa, basa imune mpanga yalikala muli sata. Bena vapoka ile mpanga vamkula puna mayanda, naka pia kakupoka muli corruption. So there is a way in which corruption damages the biodiversity of the country. That is all corruption. That is all corruption, Robbie. And then you talked about polarization and unrest. When corruption, in particular state capture, becomes a norm, this can lead to polarization with citizens. What happened in the end? Then almost the entire country revolted. Have you ever heard in Zambia where an incumbent loses by more than 1 million votes and it's his government that is handling the election? That was widespread rejection. So what brought about that polarization and unrest were the corrupt practices of that administration. Now I will go to the first thing you mentioned about the diminished capacity of state. Even if citizens were to adamantly demand that the problems listed above, all the things we've talked about, be addressed, corruption undermines the power of politics. Corruption makes our politics useless. For example, to the extent that the bribery, trading in influence, and state capture are widespread, political systems become incapable of addressing social problems whose resolution would threaten vested interests. So, fi corruption muzambia barobi, fya chave.
Wow. Thank you, Professor Wabantu Wonse, Professor Dr. Kasonso Mkwai. Wherever you are watching us, if you just joined us, we have Professor Wabantu Wonse, Professor Kasonso. You know, what other violations, atrocities, frustrations, you know, and sinuses can you relate to corruption? Professor Wabantu Wonse.
Robbie, thank you for that brilliant question. And you know, I don't even know where to start with that. But as far as the violations are concerned, we must always start with human rights violations. We must always start with human rights. The observation that corrupt rulers tend to view civil liberties as obstacles to consolidation of power can be traced back to historical sources. So human rights violations come about from leaders. Human rights violations can be traced back to leaders who sit on the throne and they must sit there because of the many crimes they have committed, and they can't leave. I can't mention countries in the neighborhood because my president might not be happy with me, when I begin to mention, but there are countries in our regions. They have violated so many human rights. They have hurt so many people. The only way they can survive is to stay on in power. So human rights violations becomes the catch and the core of corruption. The corrupt governments asked to violates human rights, and they don't want no accountability for any of those things. They stay in power for longer than they need to be. Mumoneko nakuri bakazeni b'abashikulu bamusebererenge ku Uganda, and I don't want to say much about that. I remember in 1986, Robbie Kwashirenda.
Yes.
There was a debate between Chief Shirenda and the wife about the name of who had taken over the nation of Uganda, Bambanji, the rebels, Bambanji Mukikaunda.
Lambanji.
Yes, Bambanji. And then my grandmother was like, the person who had taken over was Yoweri Museveni. And my grandfather, the chief, was like, it's Yoweri Museveni. So, and, and both of them were wrong. But the debate was beautiful to watch, What mwatu vitarovoa, keti Yoweri Museveni. Yoweri
Museveni.
Museveni. Yeah. So anyway, the
Museveni.
name was transposed to some kicker on the version, but the guy is still in power today. What is he doing there? In his country, there are no children he raised who can take over the country. So, but anyway, human rights violations become a violation, a continued violation. And then we can also experience armed conflict. The diminished state capacity develop. I remember I'm in some WhatsApp group when we try to tell them that no, the Patriotic Front is not coming back to power, and we don't need the Patriotic Front to come back to power. They started mentioning civil war. Oh, you're asking for a civil war? No. Imweta mwaishwa nokwikate mfuti. Aba iketepo femfuti when the government was in power. Kebakaonde. And today, Bakaonde is the government, are part of the government. So, nombe yonkondo mlefu kubusha tiyo kukava civil war because of the wisha balungu. Na dental formula ya mfuko. Eba lete corruption ulia mwibala, uomba mwibala ya mwibala. Barobi. So, but anyway, because corruption can bring about armed conflict and the atrocity crimes. And I am very confident from down deep myself. Bali waban tutakas minishef. And he is good. Baka on the way panemata. Baka on the charge of the matter for the country. So anybody wants to confuse the country, they will pay with their life. But anyway, I'm not here to say those things, but that's just my liberal opinion over those things. But Robbie, the last thing that I should mention is public frustration and cynicism. People lose trust in leaders and in social systems, public institutions, and sometimes even in society and ethics itself when the sense that corruption is widespread and corrupt actors are not being held accountable. This is where I hate, because the people were arrested yesterday. More than half of those are accountants. I am intending to engage the Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants over this issue, because maybe half of them are also my colleagues in the AICP-ESIMA global organization, which represents most accountants around the world. Public frustration and cynicism. the public loses confidence in the whole aspect of government. You know, I watched a video of Robbie where Bali wabantu kuchingola, he didn't professor wabantu, but he kwata Bali wabantu. Bali wabantu ali kulwansha. And then the people there were demanding for jobs. Pano pachalo, before you can look for a job, before you collect school per grade 7, or before you can demand for a job, you cannot stop at grade 7. Yes, in a good economy, yes, in a good economy, we have to have a job for everyone. But before you can make a case for yourself to have a job, please take some credit hours in school for Zambia. School man. Get some school. And then you can demand for a job. Number walekere school per grade 7. Bali wabantu is that we want jobs. Those jobs are always there. Thank you, Robbie.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Kasonso. Thank you so much. Wow, it has been a very interesting show. Robbie's one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso, Professor Wabantu Wonse. Wow. We don't have much time. We don't have much time, Professor. But in conclusion, in view of our foregoing discussion, what public policy recommendations can you make for a hardworking government of His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema? And before you respond to that question, Dr. Kasonso, Badikulwansha, they are asking Bali at Tulen Farmer Jobs. You know, Bali knows all these things. Kateka Wamano, Kateka Wesu, Kateka Uasakamaya, Ichalo Chesu, you know, let me provide an enabling environment, a preparatory environment where Kabaya school for free. So that Kuyandanshu, Adebade Kula, Imisepira Shire Kula, Shala be empowered with information, Pant Vadi school for free. And then iwe politician waisayima wa ulefoku beva bala kutandika chifuli andekyo uleichushachi because if twalisambirira we managed to go to school, we completed, you know, our education up to grade 12. So we have been taught and we are ready to understand and articulate, assimilate, and translate and interpret rightfully. So even in a podium and give us right material, which will make this country go forward. That's what Kateka Wamano Paletira. Now, excuse me, Professor Kasonso and viewers. Now, what public policy recommendations, you know, can you make for hardworking, you know, President, His Excellency Hakainde Olo Muilava Okwebati, my local taker because he's hardworking, the Nava Shirikadi, Special Forces, Mumfula, Alelo Kwadipa Parade. Such is the president we are referring to. Hakainde Hichilema. Emkwaiva Professor Wabantu Wonse.
Thank you, Robbie. I should tell you up front that Ulia muntu alitemu abantu bakwabena Zambia. I am kulokone influence of commando. I was very moved by that. No, inena unalika take out nalo umbrella. Influence ambe kundokera pali suit because suiting yalo kwa kumfula. It's very difficult to kuichisa na kabili. But eno nikateka so pamamili na mabili yepo ali kale. So kuti ashita suti imbi. So we shouldn't overgive him credit for that. But in Tungulushi abantu yali sakamane chalo. Me, I rate HH very high. I rate HH very high in the order of Kenneth Kaunda and Patrick Monowasa. Ovasatavale mutati Levi. Levi time inine kono pachuro kula yabandu chakachita. So, but anyway, the recommendations we can make are a few of them. Number one, it's very good for us to see the president being celebrated by his people on the Copper Belt, Kuluansha, and all those kind of things. But the most important thing is that abantu abalechita hando indalama shachalo under his regime bafuire bale mutina so that vela fokotala mwempi ya shachalo kulai vila. That's the public recommendation number one. He must instill what we call in accounting the control environment. The control environment, people have to be conscious of their role. People have to be conscious of what they do with public money. Not vale fola salary, ishiri pali salary, va robi. Abantu vale fola salary, ishiri pali salary. Sure. That's what that SEC is all about. You have a license or a professional certificate, and then you are going to get paid for money that you have not worked for. Don't take it. I don't know how we are training Zambian accountants. I think I need to jump in there and get involved. We are the most regulated profession in most countries. It's a shame that 70% of the people named in that list from yesterday are accountants. Well, accountant wa Zambia sure. Some of the best accountants on the continent of Africa are Zambians. Nangutua kwe CCA tulachirika. Even my record is there kwe CCA. Tuachirika worldwide. Mwamku isebanya kuri bachakoro wa PF sure in that manner. I am going to follow this case up. So the first recommendation, Robbie, we're going to make is that bali wabantu abalechita hando endala mashachalo direct ufuyiro kulabo kutina kateka. I remember when I was growing up, kwale bokutina kaunda in the government of Mwanawasa ichivumba bale chitina, and people were not. President can be celebrated on the street, that's fine, but the people handling money in government need to be able to be afraid of the president. That's called the control environment. I need to see that the people handling the money of the country are afraid of the president, and the president should not shy away from punishing people. Even in the book of Romans chapter 13, Bible yadi landokwebati lesota kupela power kweba tule tokoto elabantu nokubate kunya mapa. No. Lesanga kupela power ufiro kwata capacity ya kupanika bandenga mambo. Bandenga mambo firo leba panika. Abantu nga bale grocha pali president bale mutina. Tabachi. The fight against corruption is going to be futile if the people are not afraid of the president. We know how much progress Mwanawasa made because people are afraid of Mwanawasa. So the first recommendation kuli ba HH tule panga wa president wesu kwebati aba lechita handendala mashachalo under your government, they must be afraid of you. Number two, public policy is good when you have put up everything else that you want to put up there. But unless the people who are implementing the public policy are qualified and are committed to the cause, public policy will not achieve its intended results. I would like to see as a recommendation a demonstration of competence by the people who are appointed to handle different portfolios. And finally, the fight against corruption should carry a word in every cabinet meeting, in every public service meeting, in every civil service, senior civil service meeting, that the primary thing that the government is going to do is to fight corruption. And human beings, whether they are here in America or back there in Zambia, are always very corrupt because corruption is under the skin. So to some degree, you have to take responsibility for fighting corruption in people. When you stake yourself to fight corruption, it also means that you are going to be fighting human beings. But we must stick our foot in the sand and say corruption is not welcome in Zambia and corruption will not thrive in Zambia. Whether the corruption was under PF, which we must prosecute, or the corruption is being conducted in our time when the new Dawn government is in power. Those are the public recommendations we are going to make this week, Rob.
Well, thank you so much, viewers and Professor Kasonso, Professor Wabantuwonse. We appreciate your views and also regarding public policy recommendations, that are towards our hardworking government of His Excellency President Hakainde Chilema. Thank you so much, Professor Kasonso. Well, viewers, we've come a long way from. I think we've hit about an hour and some minutes. We sincerely apologize, but of course, and the network was a bit failing us. But of course, we should be able to perform very well in the next coming event. Professor Kasonso, I want to thank you so much for being available in this show where we discussed the SEC and the corruption, the SEC and the corruption saga that notably came out yesterday. Any closing remarks that you may have, Professor Kasonso, before we end the show? I'm giving you 30 seconds.
I have none, and I've breathed my last.
Thank you so much, Professor Kasonso. And to you viewers, we want to encourage you watching, Bonano TV, the business segment with Robbie, and where he's conducting a one-on-one show with Professor Dr. Kasonso. Today's name for Dr. Kasonso is Professor Wabantu. Professor Dr. Kasonso, Professor Wabantu, to Atasha, thank you so much for coming on the show. Bye.
Thank you, Robbie, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.